All right, hello, POLSCI001. This is Chapter 6. Not as long as the other chapters. The chapters aren't going to be as long as they have been, so um, I can go a little bit more in depth on things. All right, so Chapter 6, we're looking at federalism. So when we talk about federalism, what it means is power is divided into two spheres, one national, the other states. So federalism, you have the national government, you have state governments. And the idea of federalism is they are to share power. So power is shared between the national government and state governments. National government does its own things, state governments do their own things. National government needs help to control areas that is the job of the states. California Highway Patrol does our highways. We don't have the national government policing, we have local and state governments policing. Without states, the national government could not function because the states send representatives that speak for their areas. When you look at California versus like Florida, does California need different things than what Florida needs? Do we need hurricane money? No, because we really don't have hurricanes. Does Florida really need earthquake? No. So different areas need to have different types of jurisdiction and what is overseen. So power problem with federalism. How much power should one have over the other? This is probably the essential argument in American history. Is who should be more powerful, the national government or state governments? So, should the national governments tell state governments what to do? Should the state governments tell the national government what to do on things? So again, like I said, this is the main argument in American politics. We fought a civil war over this idea. One of the main arguments from Chapter 2, who should have more power, the national government, state governments? We fight about this as well today. Who is more powerful, the national government, state governments? So the main purpose of federalism, it's institutional checks and balances. We're dividing power, we're dividing government. So we don't have the national government being all powerful and telling states what to do. The states aren't all powerful telling the national government what they can do. It's shared between both. So again, remember the founders want to divide power, take power away from one institution. So now we have state governments and national government fighting over that idea of power. Creates a political system where interests can be represented in the national government. So like I said earlier, California has its own interests, Texas has its own interests, Florida has its own interests. So states will advocate for their interests and try to get more. California has the largest population, so California tends to get more because it has a large population. Creates a government system where the states can serve as laboratories of experimentation, where new laws can be tested out to see if they're good. Medicinal marijuana or legalized marijuana is allowed in some states. It's still against federal law, but some states are experimenting on if it's all right to have legal marijuana. So comparing systems of government, we have a federal government where power is shared. Unitary government is a political system with one government, one dominating government. There is no sharing of power. So just imagine there are no state governments. It's just the national government that says what we can and cannot do. That's a unitary government. Unit one, uni one. And then confederate government. So this is the opposite end. This is one extreme is unitary, the other extreme is confederate. Constituency governments or states are more powerful than a central or national government. You see that word confederate used in American history? That's what the South was fighting for, was a confederate type of government where state governments are dominant over national government. So we've had two confederations. The first was before the current Constitution, the Articles of Confederation. When we look back at Chapter 2, we talked about the Articles of Confederation, right? The Articles of Confederation was the first government of the United States. The second is what we just talked about, the South during the Civil War. The South was fighting for a confederate system of government, where state governments will decide over a national government. The South, when it seceded, became the Confederacy. Seceded, not succeeded. They seceded. When you secede, you leave. I have students that will put succeed. No, they didn't succeed. They seceded. The South was fighting for a confederal system of government that had states more powerful than the national government. So, the South was fighting for strong state dominant system. So you think of yourself as a Virginian first before you thought of yourself as an American. Powers of the national government, power of the state governments. I think this is one of your essay questions for the upcoming test, or the second test. So national government, expressed or enumerated powers. There it is again. We've talked about enumerated powers. These are powers that are stated in the Constitution. So this is power given to the national government. There are 17 of these powers. We've gone over some. Veto, declare war, all of those 17 things are enumerated powers. The second is implied powers. Implied powers comes from McCulloch versus Maryland. I asked you to remember that. Powers that help fulfill the expressed or enumerated powers. So this allows Congress to pass laws that fulfill their enumerated powers. So I'll give you another example because this could be an essay question. Congress has the express power to keep a standing army. What does an army need? It needs money, it needs soldiers, it needs guns, it needs housing, it needs food. So Congress will pass laws. We will populate the army with a draft. So they'll use their implied powers to create a draft to fulfill their express power of, or enumerated power of, keeping a standing army. That's how you explain an implied power. In the Constitution, it says that Congress has the power to tax. That's their enumerated power. It doesn't say what type of taxes there are, right? So Congress will use their implied powers to create different taxes. So we have a gas tax, we have an income tax. They use their implied powers to create those taxes. So like I have here, what does an army need? And then what's given to the state governments is known as reserve powers. Reserve powers. So the 10th Amendment gives the states these powers. What's reserved? Anything that is not expressed or implied is left to the states. So does the Constitution mention anything about education? No, so education is left to the states. Does the Constitution talk about public morality? No, that's left to the states. So that's reserved to the states. So anything that is not expressed or implied, anything that's not related to the 17 powers or implied, is given to the states. You'll want to remember those for the test. That could be one of your essay questions. Checkerboard of governments, I like going over this just because, and this is old data, it's probably closer to a higher number than what's listed here. 87,500 governments. That's old data, it's probably 88,500 governments, but we break it down. The numbers are still astounding. You don't think that there's that many governments in the United States. So 3,043 counties. Kings County has its own government. Fresno County has its own. Different counties, different laws, right? So it's up to the counties. Counties have their own government system. Municipalities are incorporated cities. There's almost 20,000, right? LA, Chicago, all of those have governments, right, that oversee the city. And they have their own laws, right? Small towns, unincorporated cities, those are townships. Same thing. They have a single mayor, or they may have a small city council that oversees that little town. School districts, the board is elected by the people, so that is a government. They oversee that school district. So there's 13,726 school districts. A lot of school districts around the country, right? 34,683 special districts. Like the water districts could be a special district. Westland's water district here in the valley. People are elected to oversee how water is distributed among all the farmers. So that's a special district. Oops. Sorry, I went too fast. 50 state governments and then one national government. So that accounts for all the governments that we have in the United States. All right, so there's two types of federalism when we talk about federalism. There's this idea of dual federalism and I can't remember. I'll have to go over when we get there. Dual federalism, the national government does its own thing and state governments do their own thing. They don't work well together. Dual federalism is they do not work well together. The other one's cooperative federalism. I knew it'd come to me. So they don't work well together. So, maybe two flavor profiles, chocolate and cucumber. They may not work well together. So they do their own thing. They stay away from each other. So dual federalism, the national government takes care of its stuff, and the state government takes care of theirs. What is explained to me is like dual cake federalism. They don't interact, they just stay separate. So national on top is chocolate, vanilla on bottom is states. And they just stay apart. Whereas cooperative federalism, they work well together. So it's also known as marble cake federalism. Both the national government and state governments work closely together. So they work on things together in a cooperative fashion. So law enforcement, DEA and local police on a drug bus. Education, the national government wants to do Common Core education, so they will send money to states that agree to do Common Core. So they work well together on education. Welfare, paid for by the national governments, the states distribute the money. All right, how do Democrats and Republicans look at federalism? So when we look at Democrats, they want to grow the power of the national government. So they want the national government to become bigger or stronger. So Democrats will want a stronger national government. Government can solve all problems in society. So if we look at FDR as an example in the New Deal, the idea is to grow the power of the national government, have the government hire people, make the government bigger, stronger. The national government creates Social Security and save money for you. The national government can hire people to do specific jobs. Tennessee Valley Authority, build the Hoover Dam. The national government will expand its power and its role to hire people and put people to work. How do Republicans view federalism? Well, if Democrats want to grow the power of the national government, then Republicans will want to shrink the national government. So for Republicans, the national government is too large and needs to shrink, become smaller. So give more power back to states. So that goes to that main issue of federalism, who is more powerful? Republicans, states, Democrats, more national government. So it's coined as New Federalism by Nixon and Reagan, so giving more power back to the states. Let states determine welfare laws. How long will someone stay on welfare? All right, that is it for Chapter 6. We have one more chapter before the second test. I will probably do that next week, and hopefully this is all helping you. If not, please come to my office hours Tuesday, Thursday from 10 to 12:30, and I'll be more than happy to help you. All right, thank you. Bye.